Hi everyone and welcome to this video. Today we're going to have a look at Amazon Lex and how to set up our own chatbot using Amazon Lex. So let's get started. First, let me define what is Amazon Lex and we'll understand what it's used for. Amazon Lex is used for making conversational chatbots. So if you have a requirement where you need to build a chatbot and something that can understand the user's intent and perform some actions accordingly, then Amazon Lex is the service for you. Okay, before we move ahead, I want to show you some architectures on how we can use Amazon Lex and how it integrates with the existing Bedrock agents and the chatbots that we have already built. So in this first architecture diagram, you can see that we have a user, okay, who is going to be interacting with the chatbot UI. Now this chatbot UI is hosted behind a CloudFront and an S3 bucket. So this particular way is how you can host your static UI. If you have anything, this can be added into an S3 bucket, and the CloudFront CDN will be used to display the UI. Now, how Lex will come into the picture is that all of the prompts that is sent from the user to the chatbot will be sent to Amazon Lex. So here, Amazon Lex acts as an orchestrator. Okay, so why I'm calling this as an orchestrator is that it has ways to identify what is the user's intent. So this is the main thing that is here. We can identify what the user's intent is. So when we say intent, what we mean is that uh, what type of action it is, right? So action, what action is required. So do they want to place an order? Do they want to see their previous orders, or like what type of actions in particular do they want to do? So Amazon Lex will be used to take in the natural language prompt from the user and categorize it into a user intent. So this intent can be sent to either our knowledge base, right? This part we have already seen in our last tutorials where we had an S3 bucket with some documents in it, and we set up a knowledge base in Amazon Bedrock. So Amazon Lex can directly connect with the knowledge base in order to answer the particular questions. So this particular example that we have shown here is for a RAG approach. Okay, this is how we can implement a RAG architecture with Amazon Lex. Now, coming to this second architecture that we're looking at here, this is more of an agentic approach. Okay, so what I mean by that here is that we similarly have a customer, and they can make a prompt via the web, via SMS, via voice. So this is another important feature in Lex is that it supports voice based input. Okay, and we can also directly connect it with these services. We can connect it with Slack. We have integrations with Twilio, Amazon Connect, so all of these different services. And what Lex will essentially do is that let's assume like this part is Lex. Okay, this chatbot here, it can be used to fetch whatever prompt and history that we have from Amazon, like DynamoDB. It can pass its chain of thoughts to a Bedrock model. So in Amazon Bedrock, whatever agents we have configured, we can point it there, as well as we can pass it to a Lambda function, and then we can even get some data from a knowledge base. So here essentially what Lex is doing is that it is interacting with multiple different services in order to get what is required and perform the action. So this is why we can either use Lex for building a simple RAG based chatbot, or more complicated agentic architectures as well. Okay, so now let's see how we can configure Amazon Lex in the console and what are the different options available. So coming to Amazon Lex, we can see how they mentioned that it's a conversational AI for self-service bots. So if you want to have a way for the users to perform some actions in your system with natural language, then you would use Amazon Lex here. Okay, so here are some examples how you can have some utterances, you can have slots. So we'll just have a look at what each of these different concepts mean soon. First, let's go up and click on create bot. Now we're faced with two options. Either we can select traditional or generative AI. So generative AI is how you can use natural language to describe your problem, and Amazon will try to build a bot for you based on whatever natural language prompt you have given. But for now, let's go with the traditional approach. Okay, we can either create a blank bot, or we can start with an example or start with transcripts. So if we begin with transcript, we if we have a conversation transcript between two or more people, then we can directly upload it here, so that Amazon can figure out what type of bot we require, and update the settings for that accordingly. For now, let's start with an example so that we have some pre-configured options that we can check. Okay, and we have some examples like book a trip or make an appointment, order flowers. So I'll just click on the make an appointment. Okay, so this will be just a sample template we're going to follow. And let me just give the YouTube tutorial bot, I'll just give it a name. Description is optional. Okay, I am permission, we can create a new role with the basic permissions, or if you already have an existing one, you can select it from here. But for now, I'm going to create a new role. For bot error logging, we can either enable it or disable it. Right now, I'll leave it as it is. And our bot is not subject for this COPPA Act. So let's click on no. Idle session a timeout is how long we should have the chatbot session open if there is no input from the user's end. Advanced option for tag, we'll just leave it as it is. Click on next. Okay, so now we have the option to select the language. So as you can see, we have already multiple predefined languages you can select in order to build your chatbot. So if you want to implement your chatbot with all of these languages, you can simply select them from the options and add the configurations. For now, we'll go with English, and we have multiple options here as well. So I'll just click on some of the options so that you get an idea on what we mean by this.
Hello, my name is Gregory. Let me know how I can assist you.
See, so now you can test out how this voice will sound for Amazon Lex. For now, we'll just go ahead with the default
Hello,
one.
my name is Danielle. Let me know how I can assist you.
And so this is the intent classification confidence score threshold. So we'll essentially define on some intents, right? What actions, basically intents, or what actions that need to be done. And we're just saying how much percentage, or how confident that Amazon Lex should be before it triggers an intent. Okay, so I think you'll get a better idea like once we're done with the configuration. So click let me click on done and finish setting up the bot. Okay, great. So now our bot is created. Okay, and our intent right now, let's just go back to all the intents. Let me leave without saving. Okay, and let me just go to Lex and bots. Let's just go all the way back to the home page of Lex. So now you can see that we have created a new bot, a YouTube tutorial bot. Okay, and underneath that bot you will automatically get an ID. This is similar to how we created agents in Bedrock, and it gives us an ID, right? So it's in a very similar way. And we in a similar way to Bedrock agents, we can also create versions and aliases. This is used for deployment purpose. So you can maintain different versions of your bot and have certain versions deployed to certain aliases. In that way, you don't need to make any code changes, and you can just make the configuration changes from the Amazon side and have it updated in your deployment. Now let's just click on edit. Sorry, not edit. Let me go to on the left side tab. You can see all of the options that's available under our YouTube tutorial bot. Okay, let's just go over each of the values so that you can understand what they are. So bot versions are essentially what I had said. You can create different versions with different configurations in each of the version. Okay, by default we'll have a draft version, so we can have that selected for now. By default it'll use the version, it'll have a default alias associated with it, as well as an IAM role. Also, it will show all of the languages it is configured for. Now under the languages tab on the left, you will see we have the English language configured and the intents under it. Okay, so an intent, as I had mentioned, it represents an action whatever the user wants to perform. Right now we have one intent and a fallback intent. The fallback intent is always available, and we are not able to delete this intent. If you see, even if we select this, we don't have an option to delete it. However, we have the options to delete all of our other intents. But right now, let's just go inside our intent and check what is configured so that we can understand this. Now, this is basically the conversational flow that has been configured for this. Okay, so before we check this, let me go down and show you the other options. So right here is where you define your utterances, your sample utterances. So what are utterances is that these are sample sentences or questions that you give on basically on what questions this particular action needs to be triggered. So what that means is that if the user asks a question like, I would like to book an appointment, or book an appointment, or book a appointment type. Okay, so this is just a placeholder. So if they ask any type of questions that seem similar to this, then this particular intent, that is make appointment, will get triggered. So whatever's configured under make appointment, that flow will be initiated when they ask these type of questions. So this is what we mean by utterances. We just need to define some sample utterances here, and as you can see, they have mentioned uh, representative phrases that you expect a user to speak or type to invoke this intent. Okay, and Amazon Lex will extrapolate based on the sample utterances. So we just need to give some sample questions based on which this intent will be triggered. Now here is where you can define a conversational flow. So once the user asks a question that I would like to book an appointment, right? This is from the user. Now here is where we can configure what are the information that we need to get from the user and how the conversation should flow. So you can see here first, it'll ask a prompt for appointment type. So in the message, we're asking the user, what type of appointment would you like to schedule? And this is where we define slots. Slots are basically what you can think of as parameters. So in order to execute a function, you need certain parameters, right? So to book an appointment, what are the different values you need? You need like what type of appointment, you need the date or time, and all of those different details. So those can be mentioned as slots, and you can ask the user, prompt them for getting the values. So essentially what the chatbot will do is, when this intent is triggered, it'll ask them what type of appointment they would like to schedule and get the value and store it inside this appointment type value inside this slot. Similarly, there is another slot for date, so it'll ask for when the appointment should be scheduled, and for that slot type we can give it as amazon.date. And here for slot for time, it's going to ask a similar question, and we already have some predefined slots that are available. Okay, and for confirmation, so coming to confirmation, this is to enable the chatbot to confirm before it proceeds with the particular intent. So before it makes the appointment, we're going to ask the chatbot to ask, hey, like it is available. Should I go ahead and book the appointment? Or if it's not going to be performing the action, we can give a message for that as well. Apart from that, we can give some sample messages while the particular action is happening. So how this would work is that, let me just draw up a diagram so you can understand. Okay, so this is the UI. Okay, this is going to be the chatbot UI. So the chatbot UI gives the prompts to Amazon Lex. Okay, so from Lex, what it will do is it'll identify the intent. So in this case, this will come to make an appointment, and then this will gather up all of the different slots. All right, so the slots are basically all the parameters. So the appointment type, it'll take where, when, and all of these details. So once it has all of these slot types, it can pass all of this data into a lambda function. So similar to how we do in Bedrock, right? So Bedrock can have a lambda being executed. So from Amazon Lex, we can have it call a lambda function. This lambda function will be interacting with whatever DB or whatever backend we have. And so it'll either create the appointment, do it, update it, and this AWS Lambda will again return back to Lex with the appropriate details. So during this time, during this waiting period, right, this the time when the Lambda is executing, we can have some message out to the user that, hey, that this Lambda is being executed, or we are processing this information. So that is where this fulfillment and everything will come into picture. All right. So while a Lambda function is executing, you can have some like message on success, or in case something happened and the appointment was not booked, you can have the message configured here. Similarly, for a closing response, so you can also add, after you have completed the intent, what message needs to be said. Also, you can add additional code hooks. So code hooks is for initializing a Lambda function, uh, to, let's say, you need to validate a particular prompt before you actually execute it. So you can use a Lambda function or any other API endpoint for this code hooks. One more good feature in Amazon Lex is the visual builder. So let me click on leave. The visual builder allows us to see our entire chat flow in a visual way. So now you can see that, sorry, let me just bring this back. Yeah, so now you can see that when we initially start with the user giving a prompt like, I would like to book an appointment, right? So from here, the conversational flow will go into getting all of these slot values. So getting the appointment type, right? We can also click on this edit button to see what is the slot we're taking. So getting the appointment type, then getting the date, and then getting the time. So once we get all of these three and on success, right? So we're defining this flow as on success. This will go into a confirmation phase. We'll just say that it is available and should go ahead. Right now, they have not added a Lambda function to get configured here. This is just a template. But what we can do is that we can ask it to call a particular Lambda function, passing in all of these parameters, right? We can pass in a code hook here. So we can just drag and drop a code hook and ask it to, on success, to, like, instead of going into this, we can pass it to invoke a Lambda. Similarly, on success of Lambda, it can go into a yes or no or whatever it is, right? We can add a closing response. We can just drag and drop that in, all right, and everything. So on yes, we can add it a closing response, and we can configure that message. Or we can even manually specify an intent. So we can say that, okay, after it gets all of these values, you redirect to a different intent. So you can configure it to go to like any of the other intents that you have. uh, you have different other ones, like getting the slot value. You have conditional blocks, you have fulfillment blocks. So in this way, you have a ton of way to just use either the visual builder, or you can optionally use the editor in order to configure how the conversational flow will be. So this is the advantage of using Lex, is that it kind of gives a way to orchestrate and take care of the flow of the overall chatbot without the actual need of coding. You can also use other tools like semantic kernel. You have langchain, langgraph, and all of these other coding based tools. But this is essentially used for a tightly coupled integration with the AWS services, and using the visual builder to quickly, to build out a flow, right? So another intent that I can show you is that we can click on add and use built-in intent. Okay, so here now you can see that they have added a couple of gen AI features. So if you need to directly connect to a knowledge base, as I had shown in the architecture diagram, right? If you want to use Lex to directly query a RAG, right? Use RAG and query our knowledge base in Bedrock. You can select this. You know, give it a name, and okay, let me just show you as well. Intent name. You can say KB fetch. Okay, I'll just say knowledge base fetch. Now, what this will do is that this will give us an option to directly connect with the knowledge base that we created in Bedrock. So in our last tutorials, we saw that we can create knowledge bases, right, in Bedrock. So you can either use a knowledge base, you can directly use OpenSearch or Amazon Kendra. So it gives us an option to directly give the knowledge base ID or the ARN for this, and then directly fetch the value from the knowledge base. In a similar way, let me show you the other intent as well. you can go to add intent and use built-in intent. For built-in intent, you also have Amazon Q. So in a similar way, you can use Amazon Q for answering your questions. As well as another Gen AI feature is the Bedrock agent. So let me create this one as well. Bedrock uh, agent. So now, once you create the Bedrock agent, you can give the Bedrock ID. So whatever agent you created, you can give the ID here, or you can even again here also you can use a knowledge base as well. So you can either use a knowledge base or the Bedrock agent. But whatever agents you configure, you can ask Lex to pass in the user's prompts to that agent. Then that agent will perform the operations and give you back the results. So it has a ton of customizability where you can use Lex as an orchestrator to pass it to different services based on whatever the intent of the user is. And to test this out, you can click on the test button. Okay, so right now this will be testing the draft version. Okay, let me just go back to intents and let me just click on build. So it'll just take some time to build out all of the configurations required for each languages. And right now, yeah, I think there will be errors because I haven't mentioned the appropriate values for each of the knowledge base agent, for the Bedrock agent, and all that. So for now, let me just delete my created agents, sorry, the intents. So I can click on delete. Okay, so I'm going to delete the Bedrock intent as well. Okay, so now we just have the sample template intent that was already there. Let me click on build. Okay, so our bot is successfully built. Now we can just click on the test button at the right here. Okay, and we can ask it, I want to make an appointment. We can also use the audio feature to ask it, but right now I'm just putting it in the chat. So now you can see that it's asking this question, right? What type of appointment would you like to schedule? Let's say I just give dentist. Okay, I just give dentist. And what type of appointment would you like to schedule? Dentist. So right now it's asking me, when should I schedule your appointment? So for when, I can say tomorrow. Sorry. At what time? We can say 10 a.m. Yes. Done. So now you can see how this works, right? It just went through the intent that we have configured. It identified, based on the utterances that we have added here, it identified that it should come to this intent. And then, so in this intent, the first thing that we have configured is to ask for what type of appointment. So the appointment type. So that's why it asked for the appointment type here. Then it went to what's the date. So it asked for um, when should I schedule the appointment. So I've mentioned tomorrow. And then it asks for the next slot it required. So basically, what's the time? So I mentioned the time. And we have configured a confirmation message as well. So we have mentioned that, okay, this time is available, should I go ahead and book? So since we have mentioned yes, our final thing was, yeah, it said that this is fulfilled. Okay, so right now we have configured this is all static. We're not calling a lambda function, but as I had shown you, you can easily pass in all of this data into a lambda function. You can use the visual builder to build it out. You can pass it to a lambda function, have the lambda function take these parameters, book the appointment, and return back a result back to Lex. Now, coming to the other options as well, let me show you the deployment options. Right, under deployment, you have a default alias that is created, but you can create a new alias. Give it a name and give it a version. So when you create a version, you can associate a particular alias with a version similar to Bedrock. And for channel integrations, you have options to integrate with Facebook Messenger, Slack application, as well as with a Twilio endpoint. So Twilio for sending out your SMS, and you can assign a particular IAM role and everything as well for this. All right. Coming to analytics part, for analytics we have a dashboard that's available right now. This is not really deployed, right? We don't have a version and an alias, but here you can see how much the performance of each of the conversation was. So here you'll be able to see how many times each utterance was recognized. That so if you have multiple intents and multiple utterances, then it'll show you which utterance was picked up when the user asked a particular question. It'll show the performance history, the top 5 intents that was used, the top 5 failed intents. So all of this we can see from this dashboard. And yeah, so we can also see the total number of conversations, how many number of turns there was, how many messages, what does the conversation flow look like. So this in this flow right now, it'll show from start to which intent it is going. From the intent, is it calling a particular lambda function? So that particular flow will just show up here as people begin to use your chatbot. So in that similar way, you have a lot of these dashboards that you can use. So performance dashboard for your intent performance breakdown, your utterance recognition, CloudWatch metrics will also show up here. So in this way, you have a lot of options when you use Amazon Lex to easily build out your chatbot, right? As an orchestrator, you can use Lex as the orchestrator, directly attach it to your knowledge base or your Bedrock agents or even Lambda functions, ask it to perform actions and get back a result. So that is it for this video. I hope you learned about Amazon Lex, and if there's anything else that any more services that you would like me to cover, please mention it in the comment section below. I'm actively looking at the comment section for improvement, as well as to see if there are any suggestions on what services you require. And if you require any other detailed tutorials on other services, please mention it down below so that I can add that into my tutorials next. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.